to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys from Africa, you know we love the Big C tribe. We love you in Canada. But Big C, there's no one we love more than you good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on April 18th, 2018. Big C, how's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, it got warm down here today. I've been walking around with face towels under my armpits to soak up the sweat all day.
I thought you guys used deodorant back in the day, Big C, but you Southern boys have a way of saving the environment. Is that what you're trying to do, Big C, save the environment?
Well, Charlton, you know, you can wash that away, and sometimes you can squeeze out that water that might be good in the garden.
You never want to ask what they put in those collard greens down south. That's for sure, Big C. I do want to say today is a beautiful day in the world of sports, in the sports universe. So many things happen, and we know the NBA is really fantastic. I think a lot of good old boys are showing why NBA basketball is fantastic. A lot of talk, will LeBron James, will they go down or not? And obviously, the king will find a way to win games. Major League Baseball, they're hitting off, hitting home runs, and also that football is still something that people talk about, the college game, but there's a lot of baseball that's going to get really good, especially after the NBA finals get wrapped up, Big C. I even hear some things with the NFL with Roger Goodell and also Colin Kaepernick, and I know that's been an ongoing thing about inclusion, and then Starbucks trying to close about 8,000 stores so that people can be more nice to black people. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I'd like to look at the Starbucks thing right off the bat.
Yeah.
The service industry in America has just gone in the tank. It used to be something that was a pride industry.
Yeah.
And people always felt good when they walked into a service establishment, felt that they would be treated fairly.
Yeah.
But nowadays, the people who are providing service need to look at themselves and say, would I want to be treated like that?
Yeah.
Let's not be impervious to a person because of the complexion of their skin.
Yeah.
Look at a person as being a patron of the establishment.
Yeah.
They haven't done anything wrong. Don't draw an opinion of what you think they may be.
Yeah.
Because of the complexion of their skin, Charlton.
Yeah.
Offer them service. That's all you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to be sitting there being judge and juror on your speculation about somebody.
Yeah.
And so I look at Starbucks closing 8,000 stores.
Yeah.
You're costing all these employees income.
Yep.
Over the actions of an ignorant person, Charlton.
Yeah.
Unless you're going to pay them. But still, just because you offer a day of sensitivity training, I think every American understands what sensitivity is.
Yeah.
Some of them choose to be anal about their actions, Charlton.
Yeah.
So taking a day off, closing up all the Starbucks, where, Starbucks' motto is, coffee is black.
Yeah.
But we don't serve black people.
Well.
So,
yeah.
You got to think about that. So maybe they need to change their slogan, is that the coffee is equal to everybody.
Yeah. Well, I got a thought about that, too. I do want to say this segment sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, and you can drive a car or you can drive a Cadillac. Now, Big C, I know in that big old Escalade you drive down south, Big C, you also drive with a coffee, but you don't use Starbucks. You use your own homemade coffee. Is that what the world's going to? Make your own coffee, Big C?
Well, Charlton, it has just a little more kick. And you can put some extra heat inside of it to keep it warm a little longer, You understand what I'm saying? The shine will stay on top of it. So, that's something that is hard to sell in one of those establishments because it's very minor. So.
If you guys want some good coffee, don't worry about Starbucks. Get Big C's coffee cup. That'll knock you back a couple weeks. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, my eyes always wince when I drink it, and it's not from the steam coming up. So.
That's funny.
But I'm awake.
No, that's true. I do want to add, my 2 cents on Starbucks. When I was a little boy growing up, my grandmother always had biscuits and coffee. And she didn't drink a fancy brand. They just bought what was affordable. And she always had coffee on. It would always percolate about 5 o'clock in the morning. And as a little boy, I still remember that when we would stay the night at Grandma's house, we would always have coffee wake us up in the morning. And I know that she never got to stand in line for someone to call the police because she had to use the restroom. And I know, and you're right, we can't blame everybody at Starbucks because of a few knuckleheads. So, number one, though, I applaud Starbucks for having some racial sensitivity training. I applaud Starbucks for trying to make sure that all people are treated fair. Big C, you've owned business before. You've had patients and clients. You can't always control the actions of someone that is an employee. So, from an employee point of view, give me your thoughts on if you agree with what they're doing, or you think it's maybe going too far, just hurting people who make a minimum wage anyway. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I don't agree with what the company is doing, because if you don't hire people and explain to them when you hire them, now you know the barn door is already open, as they say. Those bulls have run out.
Yeah.
You know, and you wanted to keep them locked up.
Yeah.
But you know, Starbucks has been in operations for decades.
Yeah.
And so now you're just realizing you have a sensitivity problem, Charlton. You know, that sensitivity problem, it was resonated because 2 African-American men were arrested.
Yeah.
Starbucks has discriminated for a long time, Charlton.
Yeah.
This is nothing new. It got national spotlight because of the cell phone. It went viral.
Yeah.
If people want to think that this is the first negative incident at a Starbucks, don't be that naive and stupid.
Yeah.
But, you know, the CEFO of Starbucks to come out and say, well, you know, we're going to do sensitivity training.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? You're going to put cream in the coffee and say, okay, we've lightened up now on our stance?
Yeah. Well, I got a take on that. I know that when I walk into Starbucks, there are people of different ethnic groups that serve the coffee. And a lot of people have that Starbucks brand. My grandmother didn't drink it, and she did fine. But when I look at people who work there, their minimum wage, number one, and you can't solve any ill of dealing with racism. Now, I appreciate the fact that they made an effort. They make more of an effort than Donald Trump that calls them SOBs if they stand up for what's right. So I guess Trump is going to send a letter to say all the Starbucks employees are SOBs because they want to stand up for equality like the NFL athletes. Big C, are they going to get a letter from Donald Trump? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, it's the CEO, Charlton, of Starbucks that he's going to have to go after.
Yep.
You know, they're saying, okay, that we have a racially insensitive, you know, employee base.
Yeah.
You know, which you know, models the White House.
Yeah.
But, you know,
yep.
This is always, you take one situation and you think that it corrects the ills of everyone else, Charlton.
Yeah.
And it doesn't. You know, it's always a nice gesture when the head of a company comes out and says that we've been wrong.
Yeah.
You know, just like United Airlines when they beat up the Asian passenger several months ago on the plane.
That was horrible.
Come out and say we were wrong.
Yeah.
You know, but you know you're wrong before you do it.
Yeah.
And you're going to tell me that you have employees that are imbeciles that don't understand.
Yep.
That's what you're trying to say as the CEO of the company, Charlton.
Yeah.
Is that our employees are imbeciles. United Airlines said it.
Yep.
Now Starbucks is saying it.
Yeah. Well,
what they do by doing this is deflect the blame from themselves.
Yeah.
To try to, you know, desensitize a lawsuit.
Well,
that's what they're trying to do, but
yeah.
The problem is not the employees. It's the people who hire the employees.
Yeah.
The people that are in charge. It's what's amazing in America, Charlton, just like starting at the White House.
Yeah.
You go after the people in America who can least afford it.
Their employees.
And you make them suffer.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening at Starbucks.
Yeah.
You think the CEO and the owner of these stores are not going to be paid, Charlton? Yes, they are. You may pay the employees for that day of sensitivity training. But think about the amount of money that they're going to lose in tips. Are you going to compensate them on that average of what they get on tips? No, you're not.
Yeah.
Are you going to pay them overtime for attending, or pay them 2 days' wages for attending this day of sensitivity training?
Yeah.
And then what do you teach somebody on sensitivity training? Especially when they're not used to dealing with minorities on a regular basis.
Well, I like to bring this point up. Again, I started with my grandmother who always had coffee, and she made everybody welcome to it. The thing, I've never really had a bad run-in at Starbucks. I mean, I've had bad run-ins at grocery stores and other places, like people following you. I mean, even the great Oprah Winfrey mentioned that she had and she makes a lot of money. I think she makes more than minimum wage, Big C. But even though she was trying to go into a department store overseas, they still wouldn't serve her. So it's not about your economic bracket. It's not about that at all. But I do want to say the reason I applaud Starbucks, but I also want to bring up another point. Starbucks at least is trying to catch an issue when it's a small spark, like a barbecue grill. You don't put it out. If you don't put it out, it becomes a forest fire. So it's good PR. They're showing racial sensitivity. But if you look at the White House, Trump doesn't show racial sensitivity. He shows racial insensitivity. Because when the young black men were playing in the NFL talking about equality, he called them all SOBs. And I guess SOB stands for son of a bachelor. I think that's what it stands for, BC. I'm trying to Google, but my Google won't find what SOB means. It's got different meanings to it. But I do appreciate the fact that they're telling everybody who wants to go into their establishment, and I know you've owned a lot of business, Big C. You can't control what every employer or employee does. Sometimes you just give them a chance to do right. If not, you got to let them go. But I got to look at young African Americans who have a lot of stories about being racially profiled and being given unfair treatment. And I'm proud of the young white lady that stood up, and there was a white gentleman too. I know sometimes our mainstream, they may feel that they're all being thrown into a basket. But there were some white Americans that stood up on camera. No one knew who they were, but they told Starbucks they were wrong. They told law enforcement they were wrong. There was a white man saying, what are you arresting them for? They were doing nothing. And so that gives me a lot of hope that we don't have that sycophant young white guy that stands around and says, well, that's not my problem. I'm proud of white society for doing that. Now, if we could just do it in other avenues of society, I think that would be a lot of hope. Big C, your thoughts?
Charlton, there's great people in every culture, regardless of the complexion of the skin.
Yeah.
In America, this country was built on people helping each other over decades. Okay.
Yep.
We always are going to have situations where there's unfairness. That will never leave America. Injustice will never leave America. As much as this can be the greatest society in the world,
yes,
it's also one of the more unjust societies in the world.
Yeah.
Because so much is based on complexion and economics and how people are treated. And that's been ingrained over the decades and centuries here in this country, Charlton. And you can't get rid of it. As much as we want to, as they say, whitewash a situation,
right,
it's not going to occur. As long as we have competing entities in America, even with our political parties, you know, our sports teams are meant to be combatants. That is the nature of the American beast, Charlton, is to be combatant, to not always appreciate that person that's not part of you. And so it's ingrained, and it will never go away in American society. As much as we try to say we're going to have sensitivity training,
right?
You think about it as athletes, and I would walk out there, and some teammates, I didn't even know their name all the time, and opponents, I definitely didn't always know their name.
Yeah.
But I knew their number. That's all that mattered. You know, get number 13, get number 75. You know, whatever number you were after.
Yes.
But you know, you didn't take the time to get in touch with that person to understand. It may have been the greatest person in athletics.
That's true.
You know, socially.
Yep.
But you didn't care because they were an opponent. So you have this disdain for them, Charlton. Almost a hatred.
Yeah.
During your competitive time. And that gravitates over into society. We saw an incident a few years back with Richie Incognito and several other players when they were with the 49ers and Dolphins. You know, this young offensive tackle, how they bashed him. He was a minority.
I remember that.
The things that they did. And, you know, the young man contemplated suicide. He ended up going to the 49ers from the Dolphins.
Was it Jonathan Martin? Was it Martin that played at Stanford, I think, that kid?
Martin, the offensive tackle Martin.
Yeah.
Second-round draft pick of the Dolphins. He just retired after a couple of years in the league because he said, this is not a society for me. That people don't care about other people. I'm too intelligent to labor in this. He walked away from millions of dollars, Charlton, because the league has not taught sensitivity over the years. Never has.
I got it.
And even back in the days of playing when I was active and still today, sensitivity is not taught by professional teams, Charlton.
Well, I'll bring up.
They teach you to tear your opponent apart.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this. As young, you know, as a father of two African American children, my issue is, and I think every parent of color can appreciate this more than mainstream. when your kids start to drive, you can protect them when they're in your lap. You can protect them when they're in your arms. You can protect them when they're in the back seat and you're driving them around. You can't protect them when they get the keys to the car. And for young black society, and I can speak on it because I've been one of the biggest fears that an African American parent or a black parent has is when their kids get the keys to the car. And you don't know what's going on in them. You don't know if they're being preyed upon. So we got to teach our kids to clear the fog. When you're standing in the mirror, you just took a shower. I know you guys take baths down south, Big C. You don't believe in showers because you like to do it, man. Like Jesus, you take those Jesus baths.
Why waste water?
Yeah. So, and plus you can reuse the water in the garden. So I'm understanding how you Southern boys get down. But you got to clear the fog. Because when you clear the fog, you can see if you're being hunted. And oftentimes, as a young African-American father, I tell my kids, you got to know when you're being hunted. You got to clear the fog so you can see what's behind you, or sometimes to see what's in front of you. So just because someone says, well, they're having racial sensitivity training, I appreciate that. But our society has made a living on incarcerating young black folks, creating this social enmity, and the Trump White House is one of the biggest proponents of that. I think what Starbucks is doing, they bring former U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder, who worked under the Obama administration, a brilliant man, and several other people along with the NAACP Legal Defense and Education Fund. There's a Brian Stevenson there, the Equal Justice Initiative. There's so many people that are trying to figure it out. But I want to get your thoughts, Big C. You're a father also. It's not just about Starbucks. It's the fact that someone from mainstream can call the police on something as innocuous as two African-American men wanting to use the restroom. And the police showed up. That's the most egregious part. They were not reporting a crime. I know in Philadelphia it's a high crime city. They could have gone so many other places in that city to help fight crime. There was not crime being committed at Starbucks, but they had law enforcement show up anyway, and they took the time to arrest these men. Even though they released them, it takes time to get that arrest expunged from the record. A lot of people don't know that, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, who knows of the dialogue that was used by the store manager to get the police to come there in such a tasteful fashion, Charlton? You don't know what she said, so she's getting off the hook, or he, whatever it was. The store manager's getting off the hook. Because generally police don't show up when you just say, well, we have a couple guys sitting in the store.
Exactly.
You know, and so the issue was well beyond we have a couple men sitting in the store. There was a lie that was perpetuated to make these men seem criminal, okay? So that's where it started at. So you can have all the sensitivity training that you want, but when you make somebody out to be a criminal and you lie about it, that's the problem, Charlton. You can't stop a liar from lying. And so this manager who called the police perpetuated a story of falsehoods. And that story grabbed legs. It's that snowball effect. We can go back to Pinocchio or the boy that cried wolf. Okay? That's what happened in this scenario. So the police came bearing arms, okay? Thinking that they were breaking up a criminal incident. They didn't come there thinking that they were dealing with some peaceful individuals. They were sitting down to have a cup of coffee.
That's true.
That's not the image that were portrayed to them. So when I look at the police action, they acted on the issue that was told to them, not because they showed up just wanting to arrest somebody.
That's a very...
We have a lot of bad pictures of police officers in this country, Charlton. But this is what costs lives in America every day.
Yes, it does.
When someone tells a false story, and all of a sudden the police officers show up, and they're expecting that something negative is occurring. Who knows what their actions will be from that point?
I got a story to tell on that. And again, as a black father, I'm sure every parent, whether you're wealthy or whether you're not. I know Bill Cosby's son he lost his life on the side of a road in L.A. changing a car tire. And it's ironic how that went down. There's a lot of speculation as to what that went down when he was trying to buy a major TV studio and things started happening to him. And that might be why he's dealing with issues now. You can Google what I'm talking about if you're ignorant. Now, I'll never forget this story. Back in the day, when I started the real estate business, I used to do a lot of business in the church. You know, you go pray for business instead of marketing. Our broker used to say, stop praying and start marketing. Start getting your flyers out in the community. So this older white guy took me under his wing. You know, he went to church, had his Bible. He loved sports, Big C. We always talked about the sports business. So one time he said, Curry, why don't you come with me and I'll show you how to close a real estate transaction. Now, he's a white guy. I'm just out of college, you know, kind of green behind the ears, Big C. As you good boys down south call it, you say wet behind the ears, but I was both.
We sweat a lot.
That explains the towels under your arms, Big C. Is that why you good boys use those towels under your arms? But I'll never forget this. It left an indelible impression. Now, he was a person that was well respected in the community. Caucasian man, probably in his 60s, been around the block, owned several real estate buildings. I thought this guy's going to make me rich. So he said, Curry, why don't you ride with me? I'm going to go do a real estate transaction. You can follow me. So I get in the car. We drive over there to do the transaction. Now, this good boy, number one, he opens up his glove box when we get there. Because he had a .45 caliber pistol in his glove box. Now, me as a young, naive person in real estate, I thought, what the hell? Why do you need a gun to go do a real estate deal? Would you believe he had a 100% closing ratio? He was the top agent we had. He closed all of his deals, and now I saw why people were afraid not to sign on the dotted line. And I think that movie Godfather was a favorite movie. But the fact of the matter is, we went on a real estate transaction, and he had a .45 caliber pistol in his car. As a Caucasian male, he had never faced trouble from law enforcement. He'd never been racially profiled. He was never told to pull over, where you going, what are you doing in this neighborhood. And he was walking around with $18,000 cash and a .45 pistol in his glove box. And I knew if they showed up for whatever reason, who do you think they would arrest, the black dude or the white dude, Big C? Just a guess. I just want to know your thoughts.
Well, Charlton, I don't think that he ever felt fear from law enforcement. I'm just going to take a wild whim on that.
I agree. He never did. And so when I talk about that young black boy, and I'm so appreciative of our young mainstream that stood with young black kids and white, you know, marched with Dr. King doing civil rights. And I just want our white society, our white brethren, to not be afraid to stand up for what's right. So those no-name people in that Starbucks cafe that happen to be Caucasian, I applaud them because, Big C, back in the days of Jim Crow, they would not have called and said anything other than, you know what, maybe they deserved it. I'm sure they did something wrong. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, it's always the forefront of it, Charlton, that they had to do something wrong. Otherwise, law enforcement wouldn't have showed up. That was the original thought of everyone who saw the video. They must have done something wrong. Otherwise, they wouldn't have got arrested.
Exactly.
You know, until you see the extension of the video, that they're just sitting there. And it's become a crime once again in America for minority people to sit in a restaurant, just like in the 60s, Charlton.
Yeah.
You think about it. 55 years ago, it was a crime in America for a minority person to sit in an all-white restaurant.
Yeah.
And Starbucks technically will, you know, resonate in that area.
Yeah. Well,
but, you know, as much as things change over time, Charlton, 55 years later, we still have minority people being arrested for just sitting in a restaurant.
I agree with that wholeheartedly, and we all know those stories, so we got to tell them because we mentioned Bill Cosby's son, his life was taken, and things happen in society. America's a dangerous place, even though we watch a lot of TV and we get numb to it. You guys drink the moonshine. We watch TV out here on the West Coast, Big C, but we got to know when you're being hunted. You got to clear the fog. You got to clear the fog in your life. Everybody that says they're going to do something for you, you got to know what their motives are. So let them show you, not tell you what they're going to do. I want to bring something up today in the world of sports, and we talk about the thing that happened at Starbucks and the racial sensitivity training, and we talk about why won't the White House do that? And as Starbucks is taking a leap in the right direction, I know that people can also Google Donald Trump in the Central Park 5, where he took out a full-page ad in the New York Times to have 5 innocent black boys sent to death row. That means to end their lives for a crime they did not commit. That good boy took out a 4-page ad, and he became president anyway, because a lot of people don't read. But he never repented. He never redacted the story. And those kids spent many years incarcerated, and they were innocent. So the fact that Starbucks is doing what even the president wants to do, I want to say they're headed in the right direction, and I appreciate that. I want to just turn over to someone who's been a social advocate, as a lot of people are watching basketball and seeing who's going to be the NBA MVP, and will LeBron James get swept, and will Colin Kaepernick get a job. I think Roger Goodell, your friend, Big C, he should probably drink some moonshine, because he's a little uptight for a guy making $40 million a year. Don't you think he's a bit uptight, Big C? Breathe, Roger. I think he was deposed and asked about the collusion that the NFL has against, one person who happens to be African American. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the NFL lawyers, they deposed the commissioner as well as Colin Kaepernick on the collusion issue in the NFL. Now, people may say that Colin Kaepernick can't play in the NFL. And when I'm watching a whole horde of backup quarterbacks being signed by NFL teams that have always been career backups, never been starters.
Yeah.
This young man has played at the highest level in the league in the biggest game.
Yeah.
And people say they don't know if he can play. And, health-wise, it's not a problem. He's fine.
Yeah.
Even talent-wise, we saw in his last year of competition in the NFL, just a part-time starter, he was 18 touchdowns to 4 interceptions.
Yeah.
Now, you can put that on the ledger against any quarterback out there at that season and see what their touchdown-interception ratio was. He was in the top 3 in the league, Charlton.
Yeah, he was amazing.
So to say that he doesn't have the ability to play, it only can be collusion to keep Colin Kaepernick from even getting an interview.
Yeah.
They're bringing in quarterbacks, working them out. They were doing it all last season. They've been doing it here the off season and signing quarterbacks. So there's quarterbacks that they have signed that you really have to look at Google to see who they are. You never even knew that they had played anywhere.
There's a Go ahead, Z.
For the league to sit up and say that there's not collusion, that's the same scenario we just went about in talking about Starbucks.
Yes.
To saying that you have to have a racial sensitivity training. Racial sensitivity is looking in the mirror, Charlton, and saying, how do I want to be treated?
That's true.
Then you look at the patriot that comes into the establishment that you're working and say, I know how I want to be treated, and I can imagine they want to be treated the same way.
Everybody does.
That's the NFL, Charlton, when we talk about collusion.
I agree.
When you're sitting there and you have 32 individuals that say, well, we're a collective group. We have a fraternity that no one can get in and that no one can cross the line in.
Yep.
And it's all for one and one for all. That's the motto of NFL owners, Charlton. No one bucks anybody. Look at what happened to Jerry Jones last year when he tried to buck the system.
Yes, I remember.
The rest of the owners turned on him.
They sure did.
They agreed with the commissioner.
Yeah.
So if that's not collusion, that right there tells everybody there's collusion.
Yes.
Well, when you have the other owners that can turn on an owner, and he said, okay, I'll just pay the fine. I'm not going to go any further.
Yeah.
That's collusion in power. So if Jerry Jones, a billionaire, can succumb to the pressure of the other owners, Colin Kaepernick doesn't stand a chance of ever getting a job in the NFL again.
I gotta bring up a point here. I remember when I was a little boy, I went to a store one time. It was owned by a Caucasian male, and I'll never forget one time there was a lot of us that were coming there. A lot of young black boys were walking at the same time, and he said, "You little ends, stay outside one at a time." Now, just this Starbucks thing, that was suppressed in my subconscious mind. I had forgotten about it because I was a little boy. But I'll never forget, if too many of us came in at the same time, he would say, "You little ends, get outside." I didn't know what ends was, but he used the whole vernacular, right? And it didn't really scar me because I was told that we are important and that no one's any better than anybody else. But I still remember that enmity that happened, and he didn't have that social training like Starbucks had. But when it goes to, it goes from the, people talk about racial sensitivity training for Starbucks. You just brought up the NFL. And you talk about the fact that Colin Kaepernick can't get work, and people will justify and say, well, maybe he doesn't want a job. And they hired Cutler, who said he doesn't want to work until they gave him $10 million, and he said, okay, I'll work for the money.
He still didn't work.
He still didn't want to work.
You talk about a throwaway investment with the Miami Dolphins last year. When a guy tells you he doesn't want to play,
yes,
and you say, okay, we're going to give you $10 million, just act like you're a quarterback.
Yeah, just act like
That's all
it.
they did. Just act like you're a quarterback. He didn't play quarterback. He just acted like he was a quarterback.
Well, the same thing, a similar thing happened, but it happened on a linear level. When Colin Kaepernick, of course, we know his success that he's had as a former quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers, and he's been an amazing player. If you look at the Super Bowl and the back-to-back NFC Championship games, of course he had surgery. His coach moved on to Michigan, and then they had a turnstile of coaches come through there. But I'm taken back to earlier in the careers of Steve Young and Joe Montana. Now, at one time, Joe Montana was considered the prodigal quarterback in the NFL before Tom Brady started breaking its records. But I'll never forget when he was a quarterback of the 49ers, they brought in Steve Young because they wanted to have a successor to Steve Young. So they wouldn't even let Joe compete for his job, but they never told him he couldn't play in the NFL. And one of the greatest games that Steve Young had, it was a game at home at Candlestick Park. John Madden and Pat Summerall were doing the play-by-play. I was in the press box with Madden and Summerall about 15 feet away. I'll never forget the play. Steve Young backs up the pass. They're playing the Green Bay Packers. He slips, didn't fall down, contained his balance, found Terrell Owens in the end zone for a touchdown. And I remember the crowd went nuts. It was like an airplane taking off. It was so loud at Candlestick Park. I'll never forget what John Madden said. As T.O. came to the sideline to meet Mariucci, he was crying, and he took his helmet off, and he was being hugged by his coach, Mariucci. And he said, "You think they do this for the money? You think they don't love this game?" And I'll never forget that because he loved it, but he had a chance. Kaepernick, the same person, same type of mentality, same type of competitor, but he's not given a chance. And I just want to say Montana was given a chance to go play at Kansas City, and Cap, they used every excuse in the book to say, well, maybe he just doesn't want to play again. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, that's always mainstream media saying that.
Yeah.
That maybe he doesn't want to play. Maybe he's not dedicated. When you can build enough of a story that you pass out to the public.
Yep.
And the media is the voice that goes to the public. It's almost like watching Fox News at night. Well, when you sit there and see how much an advocate they are for everything that the president says, they're actually the president's spokespeople.
How's Sean Hannity doing? Anyone check on Sean Hannity?
Who doesn't know anything about what's going on. I mean, all of a sudden he pleaded, "I don't recall." But,
yeah.
They call it Fox News, but it's actually Fox Entertainment. It's not news. They're not talking news. When you talk about the same story for an entire year, that's not news.
Yes.
That's entertainment.
Yep.
Okay? And so you get people riled up, and you keep telling them the same sad story, so that's all they believe.
Yes.
And then if they were to turn to a regular news channel and get the news of the day, they say, well, these guys are lying because Fox is not talking about it.
Exactly.
So they want to call it fake news because Fox is not covering the same story every day like these other people.
Yes.
So when you look at this thing with Colin Kaepernick has not once said he didn't want to play. Yet he's potentially was supposed to go to several interviews with teams, and it was called off. That's the collusion aspect of it.
Yeah.
The most recent one was the Seattle Seahawks last week, and they signed a quarterback that nobody knew was a quarterback. It was like Jay Cutler.
Yeah, it's
so,
funny.
When you have enough people telling you something, that's like we were talking about with the Starbucks situation.
Yes.
Okay, we got to have sensitivity training. Why? I'm not insensitive. So why do I have to go?
Yeah.
Well, we had a person that was insensitive to other cultures, so we're going to blame everybody.
Yeah. I think
and that's what's happening with Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah.
Colin Kaepernick, because he talked about racial insensitivity in America.
Yeah.
Is that because mainstream society didn't know how to handle it? They went, okay, well, let's say he's against the military.
Yeah.
And against the flag.
Yeah.
Because it's hard for America to deal with racial insensitivity.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what Starbucks is closing down 8,000 stores for.
Yeah.
Okay? Taking their employees in for this type of training.
Yeah.
This is what Colin Kaepernick stood for. Racial insensitivity in America.
Yeah.
And people said because he did that,
lost a job.
He was against the flag in the military and lost employment.
I do agree.
But the CFO of Starbucks is being applauded for saying the same thing that Colin Kaepernick said.
Yeah. And I know it's all fair in love and war, and we got to find dialogue will fix everything. I do want to say that sports is a billion-dollar industry, and boys and girls sports is the foundation to this billion-dollar industry. And for every athletic and sporting event, you need athletic and event insurance. We work with Ben and Mark. They've been around half a century. They work with Big C Sports. Whether you're a pro player, a collegiate player, a high school player, even your mom and pop soccer leagues, when you reach out to them, let them know Big C sent you at 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624. Big C, I'd be remiss to I just want to give our thoughts and prayers to the Bush family. The Bush family, love or hate anything political, they did have a first lady who was really a paragon of virtue. And former First Lady Barbara Bush, considered maybe a prodigal grandmother or mother to a lot of Americans, all colors. I remember President Obama and Michelle Obama saying how much they were appreciative of how graceful she was, and they were getting to the point where they were transitioning into the White House. And former First Lady was so ingratiating to the Obamas as Donald Trump was looking for the birth certificate, but so ingratiating. I just want to get your thoughts on what it meant to have such a classy lady as First Lady, and she lived a beautiful life, a regal life even, but she was a lady of the people, not someone who looked down on people, who talked about building walls of division, calling people SOBs for saying, please pay attention to I'm hungry. Just give me your thoughts on how much a pride and joy we can all take in saying we had someone as wonderful as former First Lady Barbara Bush. Big C, your thoughts.
You know, the world is sending condolences to the Bush family, Charlton, for the loss of Mrs. Barbara Bush. After 73 years of marriage to the former president, you know, she was just a virtuoso, Charlton, as far as American women. When you looked at her elegance in the White House, it wasn't based on having a designer design your clothes or having overbearing makeup every day, Charlton.
Yes.
She was the everyday First Lady. And what I mean by that is that everyday people could identify with her. Everyday women could identify with her.
Yep.
She did not try to shield her image or appearance in any kind of way, Charlton.
Yeah.
You know, she's the first lady we had that had white hair. And that white hair came when she lost her daughter. Her daughter was 3 years old when she passed away, and that same year her hair turned white.
Yeah.
But to her, it was always a reminder of her daughter. She didn't try to change her appearance to appease America. Now, she spent all those years in this public spotlight, you know, with her husband being a senator,
yep,
you know, director of the CIA, vice president, President Charlton. She maintained her stature as a proud woman, Charlton.
Yes.
An intelligent woman. You know, something that we look forward to in the White House that every woman in America could identify with. She, you know, here it was, she was a down-to-earth person, Charlton. She had dogs in the White House.
Yep.
They were as much in her family as anybody who ever had a dog, Charlton.
I remember.
You look at them as your kids. She even wrote a book about Millie, her dog, and it was a top seller, Charlton. Women could not wait to go out and buy it.
Yes.
Because this was a real woman that was down to earth. You know, you think about her three sons and what they had done, Charlton, you know, in the political arena.
Yeah.
You know, this is a proud mother, and you get that way as a young man because your mother's always there for you.
I agree.
And it doesn't make any difference what nationality that you are, Charlton. Your mother is your backbone. You think about the life that her husband led. She had to raise these young men and make them what they were. One becoming president, you know, another the governor.
Yeah.
And also running for president, Charlton. But she was such an understanding woman, compassionate woman.
Classy.
She made sure that reading was important to her kids and America. She wasn't a facade saying, well, I'm going out speaking for my husband. She was sincere. And that's what America loved about Mrs. Bush, is that she was one of us as an American. She wasn't that woman that sat up on a pedestal, as I said, that needed some high fashion designer to make her look a certain way, to have a makeup artist with her at all times. She was what every mother in America could identify with, Charlton.
Yeah.
And that's what made her so heartwarming to so many people.
Oh, I tell you, the world has lost a fabulous person, but the heavens have gained an angel. Congratulations for a great life lived, and to the Bush family, you know, our hearts and prayers are with you. And Big C, I do want to touch on a few things tonight in the world of sports. And you know, they're from Houston, and I want to lead you to the world of the NBA. And I know a lot of the hearts in Texas, you know, they paid homage to the Bush family, and they also pay homage to the sports teams. And we know the Astros celebrated, you know, World Series championship. And we look at Houston and them good old boys. They're right now. You think about what they have going for them. They have a guy who's been able to travel 3 and 4 steps. Big C, we get to the hole. Kind of like when you have those moonshine parties, guys. I've seen guys take as many. You want to see people travel? Go to one Big C's moonshine parties. People really challenge getting to that bucket when the moonshine's running low. But give me your thoughts. Have the Minnesota Timberwolves realized that they have a guy on their team by the name of Karl-Anthony Towns, and will they try to get him into 20 to 25 points? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, that is the reason why they struggled in the first game. You think about it, he's only scored 8 points in the first game. He is a guy that the offense needs to feed through. I mean, he is just as good an offensive player as Anthony Davis down in New Orleans.
He sure is.
And, you know, they took Houston into overtime. So it wasn't like Houston dominated this game. Yes, Harden had 44 points.
Yeah.
They have to play a little better defense on him. But as well as they play the defense on Harden, Anthony Towns has to have the basketball, Charlton.
He has to.
They have to find a way to find openings, and I'm not sure who's going to play point guard, but they got to realize that big man is their friend.
He is.
And don't be afraid to pass him the ball.
He definitely is a lion, and the lions have to hunt. If you don't let the lion hunt, he starves. So he's a lion on the team. They talk about alpha male on the team. Well, who would win the fight, the lion or the alpha male, Big C? Your thought? My money's on the lion.
Yeah, Charlton. I mean, you know, they got some canines on them and some fangs.
Yep.
You know, and some claws that, you know, can really cause damage. So, you know, I like the alpha part, Charlton.
Yes.
But when you look at Towns, I mean, he's an all-star player.
He is.
And so he's established himself in the league is that you have to feed him.
You got to.
And, you know, when you have certain players on your team and you take them out of the sequence, this is always expected, Charlton.
Yes.
This is a young team, and you have players that are saying, I want to be the guy. Go with what got you to this point in the playoffs.
Yes.
Keep those guys happy.
You got to keep them happy. Houston's favored by 10, and the over-under is 214. I'm sure there's some heavy hearts in Houston. Maybe they'll pull some more spirit from the Bush family and play with that on their mind. And so congratulations to Houston and Minnesota. I think they had a fabulous first game. We'll see what happens tonight. Oklahoma City and Utah. If you look at Westbrook and what he brings, you know, Russell Westbrook he should be, I know they have Jerry West on the NBA uniforms because he's a maven as one of the most starred and storied NBA players. But he didn't have a lot of success. He was just a star player. But when I look at Westbrook and what he brings and what he can breathe life into OKC getting to that second round, and I look at how going up against Utah, and when I look at Mitchell, Donovan Mitchell, he's a stud also. But OKC's favored by 3 at home. That's not a lot of points for a team that I think is dominant and can win by more than 3. I know Utah poses a big challenge. Give me your thoughts on Westbrook and then Mitchell, and if OKC takes a 2-0 lead, I think they can probably cruise a little bit. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, with Donovan Mitchell was a little banged up, Charlton, after the first game. He went down with a tender ankle, but he had 25 and 10 in that first game, Charlton, the first rookie to do that since LeBron James in his first playoff game. But Westbrook is just a beast. That's what he does all the time. He's had 25 points in at least 10 consecutive playoff games, Charlton, so you know he's going to bring it.
Yes.
You know, the X factor in the last game was George. You know, he just lost his mind scoring 38. and, you know, something that they had been waiting for all year long from him. Because you think about throughout his career, he's never hit critical shots to help a team. You know, but it seems now that since the pressure is not on him, that his game has risen. You know, this is Westbrook's team. he is second fiddle, and he understands that. So it makes his scoring a little easier. So when you look at Mitchell, you look at Westbrook, George is the guy who has to keep running, Charlton. Just like he did in Game 1, he is the guy that has to help OKC stay over the hump.
Well, we know Cleveland, Indiana, they're playing as we speak, Big C. We know LeBron James, his legacy is on the line. No, I don't think so. I think even if Cleveland goes down 2-0, they have enough in them to win it. And so that game is going on as we speak. So no matter who wins that, I still think LeBron James will find a way, along with the help of your good old friends at the NBA, to get to another round, Big C. I want to look at some baseball. Aaron Judge with the Yankees. He's become the quickest player with 60 home runs in a major league career. I know we think about guys like Hank Aaron, and we think about guys like Barry Bonds and Sosa and all the great players from Babe Ruth to current. Give me your thoughts. I know Pujols is still balling, but give me your thoughts on what this guy can be if he stays healthy and if he has a team that will put good batters around him, so you got to pitch to him, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, everybody talks about Mike Trout and Bryce Harper, and Trout, is a great player. Bryce Harper's been a good player since he's been in the Major League. But when we think about the bat power of an Aaron Judge, the slugging percentage that he has possessed since being in the major leagues, and the quickest to reach 60 home runs, when you think about all the all-time great players in major league history and some of the home run records that have been there, Charlton, he's the quickest to 60 home runs. So, and his career is just getting started. And so he is the spotlight of the Yankees. They haven't gotten off to the start that they expected to this year because the Red Sox are red hot.
Oh, they're
don't know how to lose yet.
They're rolling.
And I mean, they jumped on Ohtani and the Angels last night.
Give him a blister on his finger, Big Z.
Yeah, I mean, they had to pull him because they said they pulled him because he had a blister. It wasn't about the 3 earned runs and 5 hits that he gave up in 2 innings.
Yeah.
That had nothing to do with it, So, they didn't want to destroy his confidence this early in his career.
Yeah.
You can't beat everybody.
That's true.
But, the situation with Judge, I mean, you like to see that when you have a young player come into the game, Charlton, and he's doing it right. He's clean. He doesn't have any performance enhancement products, Charlton. And he's playing on the world's largest stage in baseball in New York.
Yes.
And so that right there is pressure, by itself, being in Yankee stadiums. But the success that he has had in that ballpark and all the other ballparks around the Major League, Charlton, just great for the game of baseball.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think he's going to be fine. It's just a matter of keeping good people around him so he doesn't have to bear everything, Big C. Also, I want to look at Eric Bledsoe. He's been a dog on his series from Milwaukee versus Boston, hitting 9 shots on the opposite side. And Rozier for Boston, 36 points last night in the NBA. As we transition back to the NBA from a little bit of baseball, your thoughts on Boston, and we talk about the East Coast, and I want to tie in that New York-Boston market. Right now, New York doesn't have anything going for them, basketball-wise. So the East Coast, they can galvanize around Boston. But talk about what Boston's doing and what they did last night to Milwaukee, Big C. Your thoughts?
Charlton, we talked about the young players, Rozier, players like that have bought into the coaching system there in Boston. Bradley Stevens has done a wonderful job. You think about it. They've lost their top 2 players.
Yes, they have.
And they're still playing tremendous basketball. They're up 2-0 on Milwaukee. And these games really haven't been close. Milwaukee took the first game in overtime.
Yeah.
But they got blew out last night.
Yeah.
They are just playing phenomenal basketball. And when you think about it, the last 2 number 1 picks that Boston has had are carrying the team right now. So Danny Ainge is knowing how to pick the players that Bradley Stevens needs.
Yes.
To have that collaboration, and I guess in the NFL it'd be called collusion, in understanding what you want and don't want.
Yes.
And you think about the Celtics, Dalton. You think about all these teams talking about tanking, picking certain players. You have to pick a player that fits your system. And Boston personifies that, that they built this organization through the draft, minimal trades, Charlton, because think about it, their top 2 traded players are not even playing.
That's true.
Their draft picks are being productive for this organization, so they have matured. Just like in Philadelphia. You think about the Eastern Division. teams that were built on draft picks, Charlton, are now evolving as playoff and championship contenders, and that's what you have in Boston.
Yeah, you look at Kyrie Irving and then Gordon Hayward not playing in Boston, still doing a great job. Danny Ainge really loved the way that he's taken that organization and kept them focused on winning the right way. I also want to take time to say, pay homage to Major League Baseball and what they've done with the Cleveland Indians, the big C on the hat. I like that. They opened up a series in San Juan, Puerto Rico to help give the island some emotional relief after a devastating hurricane last year. And a lot of people thought the president POTUS turned his back. He's still focused on building a wall as opposed to getting food and clothing and shelter to the people in Puerto Rico. And just give me your thoughts on what that means for baseball. We always say, Big C, that sports will galvanize our society. And I'm proud of Major League Baseball for taking a game there to Puerto Rico and giving people a chance to hope as opposed to worry about desperation and such macabre news always coming across the airwaves. Give me your thoughts on that series, what it means, Big C, your thoughts.
Well, Charlton, this is a 3-game series that opened up last night, and the Cleveland Indians won the first game, led by a home run from Lindor, a shortstop who was born in Puerto Rico and had not been back there since he was 14 years old, Charlton. He had to leave and go to a baseball academy. He was signed by a major league team when he was 14 years old, so this is the first chance that he's had to perform in front of a home crowd. And you talk about an uplifting home run to lead his team to a victory last night. And when you think about the uplifting spirit, at the beginning of this year's baseball season, Charlton, there were 19 Puerto Rican players in the major leagues. 19.
Yes.
And these players last year were hit during this hurricane, at the start of the playoffs, because they had to play and they had family back home that they were worried about. So when you talk about playing with a heavy heart
that's true.
and a burden on your mind, Charlton, these players had that, the utmost, that they could not contact family members. But for these teams in Major League Baseball to go back down to the island to show that these Americans down there are not forgotten.
That's true.
As we've seen in our nation capital, that they're no longer spoken about. They're just like the children down in Florida, that you no longer talk about gun control, about their safety any longer.
Yeah.
That's the same thing that's going on in Puerto Rico. And unfortunately, again, this morning, Charlton, most of the power grid went out down there. They had a excavator hit a transformer, Charlton.
Yes.
And knocked out half the power that they had on the island already. The stadium is still lit, but once again, these people in Puerto Rico are left in the dark, and we're not hearing anything from our national government any longer about the minority people in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, they got baseball to take their mind off it, but the people need help. Sports is great, but you really got to get that infrastructure fixed. Big C, also on the ice. I know you guys put a lot of ice in your moonshine. You don't really skate on ice unless you got some drink poured around it. Big C, the Penguins and the Lightning and the Predators, you think about the NHL, they can go up 3-1 in the NHL Hockey Playoff Series tonight. Talk about the Penguins and the Predators. I know down south, you good boys have Nashville. It's just odd to see that NHL hockey in Nashville, but we got it in Las Vegas, so it's not as different anymore. But give me your thoughts on this series. The NHL is alive, but it just cannot compete with the NBA. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, it's a secondary market when you look at the NHL, Charlton. A lot of the teams in the NHL are in non-NBA markets, so it's not a competitive sport when you think about that. You think about Nashville, you think about Pittsburgh. They don't have NBA teams. But those are two teams that represented the NHL last year in the Stanley Cup Final.
Yep.
The Penguins won again, Charlton, led by Sid Cosby. So, these teams right now, the cream is rising to the top. The teams that are supposed to win in the NHL win. But right now, the NFL is facing embarrassment and other owners. You think about owners that have been around in teams, Charlton, for decades. You own the team for 15, 20 years.
Yes.
All of a sudden, the Las Vegas Golden Knights come to the NHL,
Yep.
an expansion team.
Yeah.
Charlton, this is the first expansion team in the history of professional sports to ever make the playoffs.
That's
think
incredible.
about that. They're the first expansion team, football, basketball, baseball, hockey. They are the first expansion team ever to make the playoffs. playoffs. Not only have they made the playoffs, Charlton, they have swept the Los Angeles Kings in the first round of the NHL playoffs. They are a true threat for Lord Stanley's Cup. Now, you think about it, if you're one of the original 6 teams in the NHL,
Yeah.
especially Toronto, who has not won a Stanley Cup since it stopped snowing in Canada. So,
Yeah.
That's been a long time.
Yeah, that's.
And so you might not want to say no Canada, man. Have them upset.
Don't want to upset the tribe.
How would that set with the owners of the NHL that have teams that have had teams for decades that have toiled, Charlton,
Yeah.
hoping for an opportunity for Stanley Cup?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you get an expansion franchise to go in and win the championship. Would that not tarnish the history and legacy
Yeah.
of the NHL, Charlton?
It changes things.
I can guarantee you next time, if they have an expansion team, it'll be structured completely different.
Yeah, that's true. We love it. All fair. That great thing about sports, you can compete. There's a thing called red light, yellow light, green light. And I want to ask the whole universe, when you listen to sports or when you listen to anything politics and you want to find out the truth, I think about driving down the road. If you're driving a car, you got yellow light, you have red light, green light. Now, yellow light means prepare to slow down. When you
Well, I mean, speed up down here.
You guys speed up because you guys live a little bit different. But red light means stop. But green light means go. So the next time you see a stoplight, I want you to think about Big C Sports because green light means go. The reason I bring it up, number one, I want to congratulate Pam Oliver. She's the 2018 Gracie Award winner, and she used to work with John Madden and the late Pat Summerall on NFL on Fox. I was lucky enough to be a part of that broadcast crew. My very first assignment covering NFL, John Madden, Pat Summerall with Fran Morrison and Mike Roig back in the day in San Francisco. I met Pam Oliver, and we talk about she was a red light. See, every time Pam walked into the production truck, everybody stopped. And they stopped what they were doing. Not only because she was good looking, but she was very good looking, kind of mesmerizing. But she was good at her job, and she's still going strong. And I just want to say congratulations to Pam Oliver for doing your thing on Fox Sports. I want to throw real quickly to Russia. Your friend Putin, Big C, I know a lot of people don't know that you, Trump, and Putin used to hang out together when you had those get-down, those moonshine parties. But they let you guys come because you delivered the soft drinks from what I understand. Allegedly, Big C, okay, allegedly. But I want to look at, in about the next few minutes, FIFA accused Russia of racism. Go figure. Russia racism. And also, in the World Cup host Russia on Tuesday, some charges came in response to some allegations that Russian supporters during the country's 3-1 defeat of France in St. Petersburg, they had a non-competitive game, but it was marred by a lot of racist chants at a black French player. Now, we know they follow the Big C Sports over in Paris, France. But I want to say to the ignorant people that are calling racist slants and slurs toward any person, number one, you have this thing called Google on your phone. I want you to pick up your phone if you're a bigot and you want to call someone a racist slant. I want you to Google Dr. Louis S.B. Leakey, okay? Considered the world's foremost paleontologist. That means they studied bones where all life come. Would you know he opined that all life came from the African continent? You can also Google the father of genetics, Gregor Mendel, the late Gregor Mendel. He's considered the father of genetics. It talks about dark genes are dominant and light genes are recessive, whether it's black or white, and how the dominant gene can reproduce the recessive gene, but the recessive gene cannot reproduce the dominant gene. So for you good old boys that want to call someone out of the name and use a racial slur, if you know where you came from, you're really just insulting yourself. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it's an unfortunate incident. We started off the show talking about Starbucks. And racial insensitivity.
Yeah.
We also spoke about Colin Kaepernick. And because people who did not understand what racial insensitivity was said he was against the military and against the flag because they didn't want to call themselves bigots and racist.
Yeah.
So they attacked him. And this is what we're getting with the World Cup. This is a country that is worse hosting the world.
Yep.
But they're friends of our president who resonates bigotry.
Yep.
So,
that's true.
And he spent a lot of time in Russia, even though he said he's never met Putin. You weren't holding the Miss Universe pageant without Russia's approval, and Russia's approval is Vladimir Putin.
Yep.
And granted, he probably walked into a few of those dressing rooms along with you without knocking.
Grabbing people, grabbing people by the right part.
So when we sit there and think about this country's isolated from the world, Charlton.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any minorities that live there. And hell, who want to live in all that cold anyway?
Unless you got some moonshine with you. And they do have some good shine over there, Big C, by the way.
But when you think about them being the world stage and the world's ambassador to the world of soccer.
What a joke.
The largest sport in the world, and this is what they're doing to the competitors.
Yeah.
This is not going to be the only minority competitor that plays in the World Cup. Most of the top world teams have them, Charlton. So is this Russia's outpouring to the world of graciousness? Is racial epithets and boos?
Yeah.
This shows what our president embraces. Bigotry.
Birds of a feather, they all flock together. So I want people to keep in mind, whenever you want to shout a racial epithet, or whether you're at Starbucks and you want to call the police on somebody who looks like the late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. or Rosa Parks, you think about that. Thurgood Marshall, First Lady Michelle Obama. You want to call the police because somebody looks like that and you think you have some type of reality check that you need to look down on people. Understand your root a little better, and I think a lot of that will go away. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Bundini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He would always tell Ali, with all you've got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young men, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, we got some interesting playoffs going on in basketball. You know, you think about Portland being down 0-2, losing 2 home games. No one ever thought about that, but the Pelicans are playing outstanding basketball with Anthony Davis and their backcourt led by Rajon Rondo.
Amazing.
I'm looking forward to Cleveland evening up the series tonight against Indiana. LeBron James only he didn't take a shot in the first 10 minutes of the first game, Charlton. I guarantee you tonight that won't happen, is that he will run through this Indiana lineup with a vengeance, because the king is the king for a reason, Charlton.
Yes.
He is not going to lay down to anything less.
Well, I tell you what, not only is he the king of the NBA, he may just be the king of the universe. And speaking of the universe, every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide, follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. We always want to tell you, there's never, ever any excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.